This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Happy New Year. This will be our second recorded show of the year, the third show for this year of 2020. And I'm very excited for a very special guest because his name is Chris Voss. He's famous for being a FBI negotiator, but he's more than that. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to study with Chris Voss. I mean, the number one skill of an entrepreneur is communication. You can call it negotiation, you can call it sales, you can call it whatever you want. But as my friend Blair Singer says to me all the time, he says, sales equals income. Do you know? And when I find somebody who can't sell, it's their income is low or vice versa. But more than that, we interviewed Chris years ago when his first book came out, Never Split the Difference. And I hate to say I didn't read the book, but I will read the book now. I'll admit that. And all I remembered from that, which a lot of people remember from Chris, was the midnight DJ, voice and all that. So I was practicing that. It didn't work. But what really worked, Chris, I'm going to surprise Kim on this because, about 3 or 4 years ago, Kim says, I'm out of here. I don't want to be married to you anymore. And I went, ¿Qué pasa? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Then I was listening to you discuss my friend Donald, the Trump, and he's a really good friend of ours. But what you said about him, it just hit me right between the eyes. I was going, holy mackerel, Donald plays win-lose. He has to win. He wins at all cost. And I was going, oh my God. And then this is not your words, but I paraphrase the same, but if you play win-lose, pretty soon people stop playing. And then
that's exactly it.
Yeah, and that's my way of saying with Kim, we're talking before the show came on, I went to military school. I mean, day one, we're screamed at. There was no compassion. Then I joined the Marine Corps, and I learned to adapt to that behavior. Do you know that you talk to everybody like a Marine? So for 35 years, I talked to Kim like a Marine. And one day she said, I've had enough. So when I was listening to one of your podcasts, I went, oh my God. So I want to thank you because what your technology is more than sales, it's more than negotiations. You have the key to world peace. If we could learn to speak with kindness and humanity and support. So your technology is absolutely fantastic. So Kim and I have had a long Christmas and New Year's together this year, flying back in our jet, discussing. I'm doing my best to practice the midnight DJ. Not getting too far. But Kim says she knows a difference in me. Right, Kim?
I have. I've noticed a difference on how you communicate with people and how you catch yourself before the non-filter. You're filtering yourself more than you have been in the past because sometimes you're so far down the road. People have a hard time understanding and then you get frustrated. So whatever you've been practicing, or Chris, whatever you've been teaching him, it's been working.
So that's cool. I mean, students got to be prepared to learn. It's just throwing it out there isn't enough. You got to have a mind that's open.
Yeah. Your work is so fantastic. Because I also went to Xerox. I spent 4 years working with them in sales training and all that stuff. And what you talk about is the tie down, and that's what we called it. The tie downs. You get them to say yes.
Right.
And you see that's the worst thing you can do. So, your stuff, Chris, is so profoundly opposite, but I think is one of the most important skills an entrepreneur, but a man and wife, anybody talking to people must know what you know.
Yeah, and for people that don't know you, Chris, I just want to give them a little bit of your background because it's pretty impressive. So before 2008, you were the lead international kidnapping negotiator for the FBI, as well as the FBI's hostage negotiation representative for the National Security Council's hostage working group. You worked in all sorts of divisions, just the Joint Terrorist Task Force you were part of for 14 years. You have an incredible resume. And it's more than a resume, of course, because you've been out there doing it and living it. And so I'm just really impressed, because we always want to talk to people who are what we call real teachers. People are out there doing it, not just talking about it. And you have such an impressive history of negotiation and kidnapping negotiation and all of this. So let's, Robert, I'm going to turn it back to you, and let's get started, because this is exciting.
Right. So, when the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, Kim saying, "I'm had it with you," was my lesson. I'm ready to listen. So that's why I encourage everybody from an entrepreneur's point of view, get his book, Never Split the Difference. But if you want to stay happily with people, getting to be a better communicator, Never Split the Difference is essential. And because I'm reading this book right now, it's called Karma by Sadhguru. So I said, this is what Chris has taught me. It says, if you allow your humanity to overflow, the divine will happen. That's what Chris is teaching. In negotiations, you're teaching to give your love and humanity to people. Not tie them up, not rope them down, not beat them up, not get the best out of them. But your work is profound. So as soon as I finish this book, your book's next. Never
cool.
Split the Difference.
That's good company for my book to be in. I
know. You're up there, man.
So, Chris, could you give us a little bit of your history and how you got into this, and how it's transpired?
Yeah, well, I was an FBI agent. I was actually on a SWAT team. And then because of injuries to my knee, I wanted to be a hostage negotiator. I figured, how hard could it be? My son and I joked that there's two unofficial mottos from our family. One is, how hard can it be? Which is really close to, what they say, redneck's famous last words are, hey, watch this. How hard could it be is along those lines.
But also you say, which I think, well, also it's funny you say this, what's the difference between a hostage negotiator and my mother?
You can negotiate with a terrorist, right? Yeah.
So the toughest negotiation is sometimes with the people you love. Would you say that's true?
Well, they are. Yeah, they are, and it requires kind of a higher level than the basics. Like there's. We're talking a concept these days, shu, ha, ri. Shu is just the basics. Ha is when you get the basics down and you're beginning to develop your own skills. And ri is when you're still within the discipline, but you're making up your own rules. And dealing with relatives close, people very close to you, you're in the ha or ri area. You have to get the fundamentals down, and you get much higher into it. I mean, one of my favorite stories, my son Brandon, who's the president of the company, he's a phenomenal negotiator. A couple of years ago, his bride was getting ready to walk out the door. And, one of the rules when you're really trying to break through with somebody is articulate their position to them till they say that's right, till you got it down. You don't, yes, but here's what you see. Here's why you're mad. And she's packing, and he goes down. I got to say this. I got to get that's right out of her. So he sits down. He lays out, you're upset with me because I don't listen. I'm assertive. I'm grumpy. All the long list. And he can watch her relaxing, and she says, that's right. And I'll stay. Now that I'm grandfather now.
That's good. Congratulations.
One of the things, when he told us that story, because we're working on a couple of books right now, the first time ever it occurred to me, I said, you were furious when you started that process. You were furious. And the mere act of trying to see the other person's point of view put you in a different mind frame. It changed you. I mean, it did a lot for her, but it settled you out in phenomenal ways so that you could hear and you could listen. Just try and exercise it. And that's one of the cool things that we've actually just discovered. The great fringe benefit of applying this understanding to other people, it does a lot for them, but it does more for you. I mean, it settles you out in so many ways. We had, I got in the middle of a few months ago in Clubhouse when Israel was shelling Gaza, trying to take out Hamas. And Hamas puts their their ammunition in schools. They put it in the AP office. You know, they're daring Israel to blow up their ammunition and their weapons caches. And finally, Israel complies. So, you know, there's arguments about it. And in this forum that I hosted, I said, I want people supporting Palestine here, and I want people supporting Israel. I don't care which side you're on. But before you tell the other side what you think of them, you have to say, all right, here's what your point of view is. Before I disagree with you, here's how you feel. Now, very few people were able to execute and get it that's right. But the more important thing was not one discussion devolved into an argument. The person who hosted it with me said, this is the first time we've ever hosted this discussion where people weren't screaming at each other. The mere act of trying to see the other person's perspective, whether it's a personal relationship, a business relationship, or a political firestorm, settles you down and helps clear your head.
If I could put amen to that one, that's why this book here I'm reading, Karma now, is very similar to your book, which is Don't Never Split the Difference. You're saying the same thing. Let me read that line again. If you allow your humanity to overflow, the divine will happen. And that's what Kim was saying, is because my whole, 4 years of military school, 6 years as a Marine, we got used to jumping into people's shit. I mean, and if somebody wasn't jumping into my shit, they didn't love me. So the more they yelled at me, the happier I got. But that's not a normal society. And you don't treat your wife and business partner that way. So that's what your book is.
But you get that wired into you. It's hard to get it out.
Man, it's wired. That is a thing. So your book, Never Split the Difference, is priceless. I recommend everybody read it. I'm signing up for your programs because you have the key to world peace. But it starts with me. You know what I mean? It starts with me, nobody else. So thank you for that, Chris.
I love it.
I publicly want to thank you for that. Kim doesn't know what we're talking about, but she noticed I smile a lot more. Right, Kim?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So when I'm negotiating with people, I'm not yelling at them, I'm smiling at them. That's major
step
change.
at a time, right?
Major change.
You didn't get that bad wiring built in overnight, and you don't rewire overnight either.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm signing up for your coaching and all that, because that is the most important thing I can do. If I can change me, I can change outside of me. But I can't change outside of me if I'm yelling at them.
Yeah.
So, Chris, if I can ask, how did you go from being a kidnapping negotiator to teaching? What prompted you to go to want to teach negotiation, and especially some of these top universities that you teach at?
Well, it was a combination of a couple of things. Initially, from day one on, I started applying this stuff in my personal life. I'm just like, this stuff just is too powerful for not to be applicable to everyday stuff.
Yeah.
And then actually a big trigger was, I worked a kidnapping in the Philippines that went bad. It was ugly. It was a train wreck. People got killed. It was bad. I talk about it in the book. And we just did an after action, and we said, look, we did everything we knew how to do. And my response was, okay, well, then we don't know enough. And that's when I started talking to people at Harvard. I got them to let me come through their class, and I began to learn with them and alongside them. And they said, you're doing the same stuff. Exactly. All the human nature dynamics are the same. The stakes are different, but the dynamics are the same. And that's when really I started to slide into, okay, these guys have given me the green light. We got to apply this across the board, business and personal life. The universe lined up. I got a chance to teach at Georgetown. And the students, I was teaching there alongside Brandon, and actually Brandon guest lectured a lot, and so did Derek Gaunt, one of our other coaches.
Brandon's your son, not Joe Brandon.
Yeah, he's my son. And we started transforming people's lives in a business school. So it was cool.
It does. Kim's always said to me, says, no matter how successful I got more unhappy. I was wired up that way. And then just what you were saying about what is the I call it the corpus callosum, but there's the ancient brain, the reptilian brain, and all that. The
amygdala, right? Sounds like an Italian dessert.
Yeah. And so I just started smiling more, and if I start smiling more, everything changes. Everything changes. Would you explain that?
Yeah, there's a hardwired connection actually between the muscles in your face and the neurons in your brain. And smiling, if you start studying what happens, like I'm my own laboratory, and I know I get a hit of whatever neurochemicals that improve my thinking and my positive mindset. It's a direct connect. Now, it's not a huge connect, but every little bit helps. I mean, and there are neuroscience experiments where people's ability to frown was taken away through Botox,
Wow.
and they were instantly in a better mood.
Wow.
And so, but simultaneously, it also sort of stopped them from smiling. So frowning hurts your brain, and smiling helps your brain. And you pick up every edge you can. I mean, I'm always I want every edge I can get. And then you take that attitude, like kidnapping negotiation were long shots, slim and none. Well, you get used to dealing with slim and none, and you're successful enough, you're like, all right, I'll take slim. Give me every edge I can. I'm going to take a shot. It beats zero. And smiling is one of those little things that begin to push you slowly into the plus column.
So can I take that to one more step? Is that, as Kim says, he was saying to me, he said, why are you so unhappy? You're most, we make millions and we have all the success. But you also said that that's hardwired into unhappiness. The amygdala or something? I call it the reptilian.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Same thing.
And so what I do now, Chris, is I wake up and I smile. Whereas before, I mean, just that little bit, I smile. I get to my little book and I write in it and I study spiritual things. But I would wake up depressed. And I'd carry that into the day. So that's how, and I think Kim's noticed that I'm a little chirpier in the morning. I'm actually washing dishes and stuff like this. But I would get up thinking about what I had to do to be more successful. Does that make sense to you, Chris?
Yeah, 1,000%. And part of that is our default mode, what you'll lapse into, default with no work, is survival is negative. The caveman had to worry about, how am I gonna survive today as soon as he got out of bed. And we've got that hardwired into us from the days that, you might not live to sundown. So you had to be worried, genuinely worried when you got out of bed in the morning. How am I going to get through the day? Those cavemen survived. The optimistic caveman got up in the morning and, got taken out. He's like, I'll chill out. Today won't be a bad day. And so you need a daily practice. It's spiritual hygiene, just like you got to brush your teeth every day. You get out of bed, you brush your teeth first thing in the morning. You're practicing mental hygiene by forcing yourself to smile the moment you get out of bed.
Yeah, and my compliment to Kim was, Kim already practices what you teach. Kim's always happy. And I'm going, how does she stay so happy? And I get more depressed. But it was really understanding what you were saying, that I get up in survival mode.
Yeah.
I've got to be successful, and I am. But it didn't make me happier.
Clearly.
Any comments on that, Chris?
Yeah, well, you get into a routine where this is how I've succeeded up to now. And a lot of people lift themselves up off the ground to start with by getting after it. If you're down and depressed, anger can lift you out of that. And you remember, focused, attacking, this is how I've succeeded. And you don't realize that what got you here won't get you there. To get to the next level, you gotta pivot out of that. It's very hard to do because the people, that are largely positive are not as visible, because the reinforcement in our media, not just social media, not just today, but the attacking, the drama, that's what's reinforced in our social media. People brag about negotiations. They're going to brag, I had them over a barrel. The people that are really taking their lives to the next level, like you don't hear Warren Buffett doing an interview where he's bragging about slaughtering somebody, because he knows that interferes with his success. Oprah is highly positive, and her success credentials are extremely high, but you don't see it because it's so quiet. So it's also harder. We don't get that much feedback in our environment of how the positive launches more people forward to the upper levels than the negative ever will.
That brings up a great point there you're saying, Chris, because the media, they're so focused on the negative, and they're just bombarding, in the social media too, it's just bombarding us with all the negativity, and the world is this is happening and this is happening, and it's just so negative all the time. What do you do as an individual to combat that, to not get sucked into that?
Like Chris, you notice he uses the word how to?
Very good. Yeah, that's a great word. How?
Chris, I'm listening to your stuff on YouTube, and I said, shit, Kim does all that crap. That's why she's so happy.
That's my question. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that, and how do you not get sucked into that?
Well, I intentionally curate. I do look at the media some, and I make it a point to, they're gonna feed me more of what I look at. Yeah. So I am consciously curating the positive, and the more positive gets fed my direction. They want to know what I like and what I click on. So I'm like, all right, what do I need for my mental health? I'm focusing on, and I'm always looking for new sources of data and information on human behavior. Like Andrew Huberman is like the smartest dude out there right now on hard data on what works in human behavior. And because I listen to him enough, Amazon's listening, all the, however they're connected, I'm getting fed more and more positive, uplifting stuff because I intentionally curate that. And I do limit my my media exposure.
Yeah, me too.
But when I'm in there, I'm intentionally clicking on the stuff that's going to feed me the stuff that makes me feel good. And I'm careful not to get drawn down a rabbit hole, because they're trying to suck you down that negative rabbit hole every chance they get.
So once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Our special guest today is Chris Voss. His book is called Never Split the Difference. It's an essential book for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur. It's essential because communication is your skill set. That's all you got, basically. Because, and then as my friend Blair Singer says, sales equals income. So when I meet somebody whose income is low, their communication skills are low, or they're depressed, whatever the point may be. So with that said, we'll come back. We're going into more some of the things that we're taught at. I went to professional sales school. I used to just take sales class after sales classes to sales classes. And everything that Chris says, I shouldn't have been doing. So we come back, we'll be talking more about what Chris teaches and how to split the difference, which is, I think, a much more humane way of being in sales with people you love and customers. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And you can listen to the Rich Dad program anytime, anywhere on Android, on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. And please leave us a review when you listen. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them for one reason. We don't sell anything. We don't recommend stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. We don't recommend any investments, but we do recommend study and education. And repetition is one of the best ways to learn. Like you don't learn to be a golfer taking one golf lesson. It becomes a lifelong project. So go to richdadradio.com, listen to this program, have friends, family, especially business associates or spouses, partners. Listen to this program with Chris Voss. The book is called Never Split the Difference. A priceless book because it's, like I said, I'm reading this book right now. It's Karma by Sadhguru, and I'll just read it again because it's worth reading. The way Chris teaches you to communicate is if you allow your humanity to overflow, the divine will happen. And what I was, I went to the U.S. Marine Corps, 4 years academy, 6 years Marine Corps, and then 4 years of Xerox sales training. I could tie them down, and I would win. But as Chris says, if you win too many times, people stop playing the game, right? So, Kim, what do you want to say about the book, Chris's book?
Yes, and so I just want to reiterate that Chris has incredible credentials, and he was the lead international kidnapping negotiator for the FBI. I think he knows a little bit about negotiations across, and then there's a whole series of other credentials that Chris carries. But I just wanted to say, so here, I just pulled this off my bookshelf, and you'll see all the tabs. And now you're inspiring me to go back and reread this book and practice it even more because it's a phenomenal book. But in the book, Chris, you talk about being a black swan negotiator. What is a black swan negotiator?
Yeah, it's somebody that just makes subtle little changes in the way that they communicate. 2-millimeter shifts, to borrow a Tony Robbins phrase, that make all the difference in the world. I mean, little things here and there. None of them are big adjustments. They're just a little bit of change, and they make a massive difference. The little things that have huge impacts.
So you talked in the first part about smiling. What are some other small changes that we can make?
Yeah, well, a small one, but it's hard because it's against our wiring, is getting out of the yes business. Like, stop getting people to say yes and substitute a question. Go from do you agree to do you disagree? Go from does this look like something that would work for you to saying, is this a bad idea?
Yeah.
Are you against? Have you given up on? I mean, that tiny shift from yes into no is monstrous. It's monstrous. And that's the single simplest shift, but also the hardest because it's against your wiring. Like, people love to hear the yes. Like, when you hear yes, you feel the heavens part, the angels sing, the birds are chirping. But the difference is what does it feel like to say it versus hear it? And people feel safe when they say no.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been trained at, right? Oh, get them to say yes, get them to say yes, get them to say yes, 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 yes. And so when you ask the question, do you want to buy? Yes. I mean, that's the training, right?
Yeah, that's the theory. Yes, very good.
and that's why I want to back up what Chris is saying, because I went to Xerox sales training for 4 years. My best friend and I were number one in sales, and we call them tie downs. Get them to say yes. Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you like to have more time with your friend and family? Wouldn't you like this? We're in training them to say yes, so we kind of trick them into saying yes. So when I started listening to your podcast, I was going, holy moly, my job is to get them to say no. So would you, before we go into that, we'll hold that, because that's probably the hardest thing I've had to learn, is how to get them to say no, because I'm so entrained to get them to say yes. In the Marine Corps, there is no, sir. In the Marine Corps, there's only 2 words. Yes, sir. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no, sir. So anyway, before we go on that, would you mind giving us what the Black Swan Group does and what services and products you offer?
Yeah, we coach and train negotiations. I mean, higher output. We coach corporate teams, but we really cater to the top 1%. I mean, somebody like you who believes that learning is a lifelong process and reads. I mean, you got to pick it up from the outside. It's people that say, well, experience is the best teacher, and the only way that they learn is through experience. I mean, those are slow learners. So the top 1%, the people that are drawn to us, they believe in investing and learning in themselves, and they want to collaborate with people. They want to take their life to a higher level. They want to put their kids in a better house, and their kids to a better school, and they're willing to invest in themselves to go after it. So we coach those people and we train them, and very much like a real coach. I mean, everybody out there calls themselves a coach these days. A real coach stands on the sidelines with you and sends you into the game and watches how you perform. And then you come off the field and you make adjustments with that coach. And we are actively involved in coaching people through top-level negotiations and stand with you while you work through it. And, everybody's got enough at stake. But you got to realize that and how much you're going to lose by screwing it up. And a lot of people don't really understand how much they're leaving on the table. So we coach and we train.
It's okay. One more thing. You said something about a coach or somebody who's better than you will never criticize you, or something. There was something you said in one of your podcasts.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of critics. Never take advice from somebody you wouldn't trade places with. Never take directions from somebody who hasn't been where you were going. And really, if they're on your side, if they're really mentoring you, they're not going to criticize you. I mean, they're going to get in there with you. They're going to coach you so you perform better. They're going to make you go through the obstacle yourself, but they're going to coach you while you do it. They won't remove the obstacle. And you don't want people removing the obstacle for you. You want to learn how to get through it on your own.
Right. The best thing about what Chris is saying is that everything I was taught through all the military and sales training and all this is opposite. And the hard part is being opposite. So like my job is I was doing my best to get Kim to say no. She wouldn't say no to me. I got to try something else here. So Chris, from Christmas through New Year's and flying back on the plane, I was practicing. I couldn't get her to say no.
And I forget some of the things that you had in here, but that I do use. And there's one that you say, and I just used it the other day, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. And you said that these effective pauses, how powerful silence is. And I was talking with a gentleman. We had made an agreement, and he was backing out of that agreement. He said, well, I can't do that, but I could do this and this. And I said, well, I can't do this and this. And you need to fix this problem. You got to fix it now. And I just shut up. And that silence was like, it's painful because you want to talk and you're told to talk, sell. And I just shut up and I'm like, you need to fix this. And I shut up, and he said, I'll call you back. And he called me back and he fixed the problem.
Nice.
I had to stop talking.
And the reason what you teach, Chris, is so important, it's every day. And it's every day we make the same mistake. Like I was still a U.S. Marine, and I was still a Xerox salesman, number one in sales, tying people down, manipulating and all this. You call it assertive. Marines call another word asshole. It's just tough as shit. And the price was Kim. I was just too tough on her. Now, Kim is tough as nails also. She is, don't mess with Kim. I mean, your mother's tough, Kim's just as tough. But anyway, there comes a time when it stops working. And I think that was one of the best lessons you gave about my friend Donald is he's tough. I enjoy being around him, but not everybody can take it.
I've been watching Donald Trump for a long time. I was in New York in the 80s and the 90s when he was there. Actually, one of the very last things I did in New York when I was volunteering on a suicide hotline, he agreed to host a fundraiser for our hotline at his apartment in Trump Tower, and he showed up. So he wouldn't recognize me if I walked through the door. But we've got a history of watching him, and I think he's done some spectacular things, and simultaneously, people get tired of getting beat over the head.
Kim, what was your experience? We love Donald and his kids and all that, his two sons, Eric and Don Jr. and Ivanka. Anyway, all of his staff. What was your experience with dealing with him?
Well, my experience was terrific. I mean, we never really had a negotiation. But he was very respectful. I mean, he was very respectful. I think the funniest thing when you talk about him wanting to win, I think one of the reasons he wanted to do a book with Robert is because Robert had the best-selling personal finance book of all time, and he wanted to be the best. I think that's why that happened. But no, I enjoyed working with Donald very much, and I think he's, he practices what he preaches. He's a business guy, and he's trying to get the country back as a business. So I'm all for it.
So Chris, how do you get somebody to say no? I mean, because my whole life has been geared to say yes. I practice over Christmas and New Year's. I couldn't get Kim to say no.
Well, a lot of it, it's really what comes after the word no. First of all, are you against? It's context, and when somebody says no, typically they start kicking in additional ideas. Like, no, I'm not against it. You might shift into what stands in the way. I mean, really focusing on barriers and the other person's comfort level, because we're just so wired that if I say yes, there's a hook here someplace.
Yeah.
And understanding what the other person's motivation is, but getting somebody to say no is really to trigger the follow-on conversation, and that's what a lot of it is really about.
So, would you explain what happens, from the human psychology point of whatever you call it, the neuropsychology, getting somebody saying a no versus a yes, because we are so conditioned. I am to get the yes, and that's why I won so much. But what's the other side of that, Chris?
Yeah, we know from experience that people feel safe and protected when they say no. I mean, that's why people say no to everything. They get their default answer is no. And I started looking back on, like when my son was 17 and the words "Dad, can I" came out of his mouth, I would immediately say no. But I reflected back on that, and then I would always say, now that I said no, what was it that you wanted? And I look back and I realized that I was always more open to the conversation after I said no. So the specific neuroscience behind it, that's one of my conversations with Huberman, because I was lucky enough to meet him, for my birthday a couple months ago. My girlfriend, Wendy, convinced him to come down and have lunch with me as a birthday present. And he is an interesting cat. And
who is this
we
again?
talk for hours about the neuroscience.
Okay, good.
His name is Andrew Huberman. He does a podcast out of Stanford, and he's like what you want in a PhD, because a lot of PhDs they want to be Jesus because I said so. It's true because I said so. Huberman's a PhD, but he says here's the data, here's the study, peer reviewed, solid data. Don't listen to me because I said so. Go to the sources that I've come to. And so his info is very solid, and plus he's an interesting cat. And so we've talked about that. I threw some things at him, like, I know this to be true. Let's figure out what the neuroscience is behind it. And I stumped him a couple of times. But you originally asked me about what's the neuroscience behind no. We just know anecdotally how it opens people up. We got enough experience team-wise that we got everybody that we coach in a Black Swan method to get comfortable with it, and they accelerate their lives.
There's another piece to the whole no and that you talk about in using I. I is also like a turnoff. Can you expand on that?
Well, so that's a little context driven also, but I is a very self-centering thing. And you want to be conscious in the moment. Most of the time, you don't want to self-center. Like, a lot of psychologists will say, psychiatrists, therapists, well, what I'm hearing is, well, then that takes a conversation away from the other person. It self-centers on you when you should be focusing on them. So, you sound versus I'm hearing changes the subtle dynamic. Again, it's a tiny 2 millimeter shift. And the 99% of the time, the word I is going to work against you. And you want to focus on the other person. Let them know that you're attentive to them, as opposed to you're more fascinated with your own reaction.
Yeah, you talk about it instead of saying I, what I'm hearing is it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like, and that puts it back on them.
Right. Yeah. It makes them feel more focused on. The other thing too is, what do you think is a hard question to answer. And if you say seems like you're thinking in depth, there's something about that second one, it seems like, or you seem like you have a reason for saying that. You get a much more honest response, an unvarnished download of what the other person is thinking. And even, the other day when I was exhausted, I'm coming back from Dubai, texting with one of my colleagues, and I threw a question at him, and he could have texted back, what makes you ask? Instead, he texted back, seems like you have a reason for asking that. And I immediately downloaded all my thoughts. And if he'd have said, what makes you ask, when I was tired, that what triggers in-depth thinking, I didn't have the capacity when I was tired to do in-depth thinking, but I could give him a straight download of what I was thinking.
Interesting.
So that's why I'll plug this book again. It's called Karma by Sadhguru. And this is what you're teaching. If you allow your humanity to overflow, the divine will happen. And I believe that's my experience of what you're teaching, because you give other people the control to speak, not try and tie them down like we do when I was trained in the Marine Corps, but also at Xerox sales and things like that. So your work is profound, and I really suspect it can be a major component for world peace, or at least peace among people. And so I think Kim noticed I'm smiling a little bit longer and speaking less. Have you noticed that, Kim?
Yes, I have. And it's also to your whole subject, Chris, of negotiations. Just that word, triggers reaction in people, because negotiation is always like a confrontation, and you want to win and they want to win, and you're trying to. So your whole premise is not to be combative, but to kind of figure it out together.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other two things are the words, like you use the word, how can I do that, versus why are you doing that? What's the difference between why and if you say how? What's the difference? Because I notice I ask why a lot of the times, and I stop doing that.
Yeah, and now why is a hot button word? Like, you may not be accusing the other person of having made a mistake, but when you are accusing them of having made a mistake, you are going to say, why did you do that? And again, my son's observation, like everybody on earth, when they were 2 years old and they broke something, the nearest adult in a room pointed at him and said, why did you do that? Mm-hmm. And we get it beat into our head enough that if I'm being asked why, the other person is accusing me of making a mistake, that it causes people to pull back. Like, what did I do wrong? I don't know. And the business advice to find the other person's why, finding motivation, is good advice. It just ignores the fact that we all feel like we were getting hit with an electric shock when somebody says, why are you thinking that? Why did you do that? Why do you want that?
My favorite
and
word.
Switching out of why is another huge change.
Right. Another thing you say is you don't say yes, you just say you win. In other things. I mean, it is such. I mean, I'm like a student. I said, oh my God, because I need to change, and that's the most powerful thing that the Black Swan Group does. Your book, Never Split the Difference, is how we got to change if we're going to bring more peace and more prosperity. But it's in our communication skills. So, final word is: can you give us one more? How does the world access the Black Swan Group, and what other services do you offer?
The gateway to everything, the gateway to the website, the gateway to our offerings is to sign up for the newsletter. And I'm guessing this is largely an international audience, or significantly. So the best way is to go to the website, blackswanltd.com. In the upper right-hand side is a tab for the blog. Sign up for the newsletter. Comes out every Tuesday morning. Will come wherever you are in the world. You're going to get it Tuesday morning, first thing in the morning. Concise, actionable, free. But free stuff doesn't mean it's valuable. If it's concise and actionable, that's what makes it valuable. Then plus, that's the gateway. We got a lot of free stuff on our website, and our offerings, whatever you need, wherever you are, we will meet you where you are. If you sign up for the newsletter, use it to supplement all your knowledge and take your negotiation skills forward.
And I'm going to just add to that because this is my book. These are all the tabs. They all have notes on them. And what I love about your style, Chris, is, as you said, these are simple things and actionable things you can use starting today. They're simple little things, but it takes practice. But it's a great resource for negotiation. And so I want to really highly recommend people get Never Split the Difference.
Thank you.
It's like Kim and I was negotiating back and forth over Christmas and New Year's, and I said, "Sure, knows your stuff," because I didn't know it. By the way, Chris,
that means she wants to negotiate with you, not against you. With you, not against you.
Thank you, my friend. So, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. It's very important work, and thank you all. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure being on with you guys. Yeah, I love talking with you guys.
Yes, thank you. We'll be doing more. Yeah. So we'll come back. We'll wrap it up. Okay. So thank you to Chris Voss. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. I want to special thanks to Chris Voss, the author of Never Split the Difference and chairman of the Black Swan Group, LTD. Because if you are an entrepreneur or you want to get along better with people, your communication is crucial. And I, fully disclose how my communication style evolved. It was 4 years of military school, 6 years Marine Corps, and 4 years at Xerox. We're taught to speak in a certain way, and it drives success, but it can also take success away. So you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime at iTunes and Android and YouTube. Our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them for you to listen to again, but more importantly, your friends, family, and especially business associates, and you want to make more money or have better relationships with people, Chris Voss's work is essential. So, Kim, what did you think of Chris in this program? Bringing up his book was fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's true. It was just sitting on my bookshelf here, and we studied this as a group. And we had Chris call in on our book study on this. But I forget how many of these small little, not even tips, but practices can make such a difference. And what we talked about, in terms of no, get somebody to say no, that opens up the conversation, because I know for me, when I'm getting a sales pitch or something and they say, well, wouldn't you agree? And don't you think that? And they want me to say yes. And I do everything not to say yes, because I know they're just trying to lead me down this path. And he says, actually, if you get them to say no, that makes them feel more safe and they can open up more. Or not to say, I think this is what's happening, instead of saying, it seems to me, it feels to me, it sounds like, seems like. Just little tiny things make all the difference, and I think most importantly, not so much the negotiation, but keeps the communication open.
It's very humane.
His work is brilliant.
Very humane. Sarah, what you think?
Yeah, I think, and Kim touched on this during the interview, is that the term negotiation, it automatically feels like there's a winner and a loser. Like if I'm going into this negotiation, where I think his practice, or what he teaches, is to open that communication where you come together to that agreement, or whatever it is, that there isn't necessarily a winner or loser. And you started off the show with that Donald Trump plays to win or lose. Well, he plays to win, but if you play that way, people stop playing.
Right.
And I think that's, the collapse of the negotiation then happens.
Correct. So. And the other thing he says, which is important, this is your last impression is the lasting impression. Mm. And he says that's neuropsychology. So if I'm there being an asshole, that's what you remember. And that's why I'm called an asshole so many times, because I've practiced it every day, and Kim knows that. I kind of enjoy it, it's self-defense. But as a Marine, if we weren't being yelled at, it meant the guy didn't care about me. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers most people. I don't really care if you're screaming and yelling and stomping on my toe. It's part of the culture. So anyway, I carried all of that plus the Xerox tie downs. Wouldn't you agree? And if we could do this, do we have a get into the say yes? And that's why people hate salesmen. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's why please check into the Black Swan LTD. Is that what it is?
Yes, you're right. BlackSwanLTD.com.
And get the free newsletter. And I think Chris is on to something very important for all people, for health, wealth, and prosperity.
And I want to just add one more thing, what you just said, Robert, about negotiation and the tie downs and all of this, is people know in that situation they're being manipulated. They know it. Right. And they don't want to be manipulated. They want to be heard. They want to be talked to. They want to be talked with. And I think that's where it gets a bad rap. So this has been great. It's been great talking to Chris.
Yeah. Well, I watch YouTube. Would you like to find out how I made $6 million for 25 cents? And just click here on the YouTube and like me. I'm going, I'll never click. I'll never do any of that stuff, because I know you're trying to sell me something, you idiot. But anyway, I want to thank all of you, and you have final words on that, Sarah?
Oh, I mean, that was hilarious. But this is a great show, because as we look to 2022, we had a great conversation with Jim Rickards, and the outlook of 2022 does not look so shiny and bright. But if you can work on yourself, you can make things better for yourself. Correct. So I thought this was a great follow up to that episode.
So Kim and I have, for all these years have been together, and now we're splitting up. But we can still be friends and business partners and all this. So we're going to get our divorce and move on. But it doesn't move to hate each other and stuff like this. It's been almost 36 years now. But it's been, I finally got two yeses. So, okay, that's why we're splitting up, is because I was playing winners and losers too hard. I play that game very hard. And most of my friends do too. So it's an interesting thing. That's why I'm reading this book right now, Karma by Sadhguru, is because we create our karma from inside. Doesn't come to you from outside. And so it's been a fantastic Christmas and New Year's, huh, Kim?
Yes, it has.
Talking to people differently. Just talking to them differently and being aware of the last impression and how we support them being, spreading our humanity, not our vengeance. So with that, thank you all for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show. We'll see you next time. Thank you.